Hello, friends. We are closing in on the end of this Egoic Lotus Webinar Book. We have for our subject now the last petal of the nine. Petal number 9, the third petal of the sacrifice tier, and we're looking at practical advice or directives for those who have certain energies in their rate chart or their astrological chart and want to think of ways of accomplishing the tasks associated with the unfoldment of this petal by using the energies in the right way. Here it is, petal 9. Its colors yellow, orange, rose, blue, and indigo. These have been discussed in detail as we've done the synthesis for for these various petals one by one. So here we are, beginning of program number 71, and this will either be the last program or there will be a program that's kind of just a brief roundup, talking about the implications of all that has been undertaken thus far. The statements for on page 541, 542, and also 822 to 824 of Cosmic Fire regarding these petals, the statements are brief, and they give us the sense of climax, of consummation, of a unit of work accomplished, and then before moving into another and higher level of work with the unfoldment of the synthesis petals. The petal of sacrifice for the mental plane demonstrates as the predominant bias of the soul as seen in a series of many lives spent by the initiate prior to his emancipation. He becomes in his sphere the great sacrifice. We know that Sanat Kumara is the great sacrifice. He is an incarnation of the planetary logos. He is a projection, an emanation of the planetary logos as directed into our fourth chain and onto our fourth globe in the Shambhala, which relates to that globe. The soul has the bias of sacrifice. The soul comes into incarnation, that is, the solar angel does, as the angel of the presence, with the purpose of sacrificing its time, its energy, its attention for the upraising of the human monad, which is working through evolution in the three lower worlds. The purpose of the solar angel is to facilitate, to speed forward the development of that monad in extension. So many lives are spent recognizing that the soul has this bias. And the soul demonstrates this bias by supervising the development of the human being from the time the work in the fifth petal is underway. And we began actually this series of offering practical advice and certain directives with the fifth petal. So many lives are spent in the increasing recognition that the soul has this sacrificial urge, the solar angel has this sacrificial urge, this sacrificial will, filled with sacrificial love, to bring the human jiva into a state of emancipation at the fourth initiation. And the human being realizes ever more fully what is the sacrificial nature of the soul. as that human being, the monad in extension, approaches the ability to focus consciousness within the egoic lotus, which is pervaded by the angel of the presence, or pervaded by the solar angel as the angel of the presence, and which is substanded by that angel, and which is supported by that angel. More and more we realize the sacrificial work of our solar angel, manifesting as the angel of the presence. And because we do realize that, we realize that our solar angel is, for us, a great sacrifice. And this is this realization intensifies as we move into the second initiation, into the third, and perhaps climaxes at the fourth degree. But we realize, even at the third degree, and as we're approaching the third degree, that we, the extension of the monad, must become, with the help of the solar angel and all of its support for so many lives, the great sacrifice in our own sphere of expression. Our gain of power and usefulness and service always occurs through sacrifice. And we think about Sanat Kumara increasingly. The solar angel has been for us a great sacrifice, and our minds are drawn towards Sanat Kumara, who stands at his post, we are told, until the last weary pilgrim, at least of a certain group of beings, finds his way home. And so we begin to emulate those great exemplars. We emulate the solar angel who has supervised us, lo, these many years, millions of years of supervision. And although we cannot fully understand it, we begin to emulate Sanat Kumara, the emanation of our planetary logos, and we stand in a certain sphere of usefulness, a certain sphere of service, as the one who supports, pervades, underlies, uplifts, facilitates, and gives his all, that the lesser lives within our microcosmic sphere and the lives within the sphere that we can reach, they are human lives and the lives of the lower kingdoms, can be uplifted because of our example, because of our distribution of energy. It's very rare then to have that attitude, and so for the moment we must say that the true third degree initiate is rare at this time of human development, but will not be rare in the future, because in the foreseeable future there must be even many initiates of the fifth degree produced if the divine plan is to go forward as it should. So just imagine standing with the ninth petal almost unfolded or completely unfolded, and having the dominating note of sacrifice, the right and selfless giving of all that one may give under the law to the upliftment or towards the upliftment of those whose lives one may touch, whether they're in one's own microcosmic demonstration or within the environment that one can touch. And then it becomes so straight and simple what the Tibetan says of Petal 3 as we get into the 820s of cosmic fire, the utter sacrifice of all forever. At least that is the bias, and that is the decision that has been made by the sacrificing soul. And here I mean by the sacrificing monad in extension. This is the decision to sacrifice all forever. Of course, one gets better and better at doing that. To say that a third-degree initiate understands the principle is probably correct. To say that he can function as a sixth or seventh degree initiate, such as the Christ, in terms of sacrifice, would be a huge exaggeration. And Sanat Kumara even more so, and the Solar Logos even more so. So they are involved in their own high spheres with the utter sacrifice of all that they have forever, of all that they may accumulate. But there is really no comparison between what they can do and what the initiate of the third degree can do. And yet the bias of the monad in extension, nurtured by the soul and cultured by the soul, is there. One begins at least to have that attitude that all that has been gathered will now be given in the right way forever onward until the completion of this universe. So when this ninth petal is opening, and when the rod of initiation is applied, the flaming diamond in the hand of Sanat Kumara, there is the ability to become a reflection, a tiny reflection of Sanat Kumara. And the bias of the solar angel, which is towards the salvation of lesser lives, and the man it supervises is a lesser life comparatively, is now taken over by the man himself. He begins to assume more and more the attitude of his own solar angel and the attitude of the far greater being that we call the Great Sacrifice. So what an amazing task to fulfill. And how would we go about fulfilling that? Through the rays that we have, through the signs that are prominent in our astrological chart, through the planets which rule those signs. These are our equipment. These are our instruments to fulfill this so demanding task. More demanding a task than in any other petal. In petal 8, we already gave what we could give in sacrifice, and we achieved the ability not to count the cost, even though the giving was at first very painful, as one might expect, the bitter woe of Scorpio on the fixed cross. But we learn to overlook all that. We learn not to have our mind there at all, but to be caught up in the joy of the act of giving, with all the love that implies. That's what we learned, and we struck, therefore, a major blow against selfishness, and Mars in its primitive aspect was greatly reduced. But now we are asked even more, and I believe the word utter is used. When we use the word utter, we mean all, we mean complete. Nothing held back, all completely given, and given, of course, with wisdom. Given in such a way that the receiver truly benefits from that which is poured forth. We are told how Shambhala co-measures its touches, the power that touches and then withdraws, so carefully. It measures its touches. Otherwise, the energy pouring forth from it would be destructive and would not be a service at all. Sometimes destruction is a service, but we're not talking about that in general. Sometimes the power of Shambhala must destroy, but in general, Shambhala is seeking to work the will through the form without destroying the form. So exquisite co-measurement and care is taken by Shambhala, and we must learn to do the same. Now suppose we are powerfully endowed with the first ray. And here the first ray is one of the major sacrificial rays, along with ray 2 and ray 4. And we have the summon the power and steadfastness to give all that might be rightly given, and give in the wisest, most loving, and most intelligent way. So there is a great resistance in the personality to the giving of all. But remember, to those who give all is given. So use the will to overcome any latent resistance to the giving of all. Prevent the elemental life and even the accumulated content of the causal body from stopping the full sacrificial giving, which is now seen as necessary and is required. So it takes a great deal of steadiness and will and power to overcome the tendencies of many, many lives. The soul has had its tendency, which is the bias of giving. But the personality has had its tendency, which is the bias of acquiring and retaining for the enhancement of a very small ring past knot. So here we might say that filled with the will to good, we identify as the great being, the monad, as much as possible, and will to give the content of the causal body to those in need, inspired by the will of the monad, with which we now increasingly identify. Now that identification is going to increase, and we will be further empowered because of our identification as spirit. Well, we realize our will nature because spirit has made its impact at the 9th petal at the time of the 3rd initiation. The monad comes into conscious recognition and registration and allows us a kind of power, whatever the ray may be, which we did not have before. So if you are strongly endowed with ray 1, you go ahead with that monadic agenda. So go ahead bravely with the monadic agenda, inspired from on high by the highest aspect in your nature, which is correlated with ray 1. Now, if we're reaching the transfiguration here, and a great light is breaking forth, the light of transfiguration. This is a small expression of the light supernal. Now become a great light bearer. Descend from the that's mysteries of the initiation. Let's see if I have, no. MT, well, it should be mountain of initiation, and offer in love to all consciousnesses which you touch this great life-giving light. The second ray is the light bearer. So forget yourself and the joy of basking in the light supernal, and with empathy realize the need of others for the great light, and no matter what the cost, descend and pour forth this light and this love. Lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. And there's the intimation of love eternal. Love eternal, light supernal, peaceful silent will. These will grow in registration as one experiences the third initiation and goes beyond that point. So, this transfiguration is a lighted experience, but the eternal love of God, our planetary logos, and the peaceful silent will of our planetary logos through Sanat Kumara also enters the field of experience in a certain measure, and these have to be shared. So share widely and in love the great light which you now experience as you climb the, I'm going to, this is going to be talking about the mountain of initiation, so I might as well have it as one of those important abbreviations. Okay, I hope that there's no misspelling there. Mountain of initiation, MTOI. As you climb the mountain of initiation. So just generously pour forth all you have received in your chalice on top of the mountain of initiation. I think we can understand, and let's just say, feel yourself now at one with the whole. And I should have set up here with Ray 1, register the first impression of isolated, I wonder if this is isolated, no, it's in universe, ISU, isolated unity. Register the first impression of isolated unity and preserving this unity. Work to empower all those who come within your range of influence. And here under the second ray, you are really experiencing meticulous entirety. You're experiencing inclusive reason. And I'll just say here, experience inclusive reason and help others see the greater light by cultivating in them some measure of inclusive reason. it's an aspect of pure reason. It's an intuitive factor. It's Buddhic, you know. There's just so many things that can be said because this transfiguration initiation is the moment when the soul assumes the majority of power. It's sort of 3/2, you might say. It's the fifth in music. It is the achieved and perfect fifth, and what is called the dominant in music emerges, and this dominant is the interval of the soul. Ya-da-da-da-dee-dum-da-da-dee, da-da-dee. But we're not to the octave yet. We are simply expressing the dominant of the soul. Now, as I say, every one of these deserves a lot of attention, but I'm moving through them somewhat as I have moved through all, just offering a few thoughts, while realizing later, oh my goodness, I didn't offer one of the most important. But please bear with me and let me bear with myself as I simply try to move ahead and get this out to you so you may begin to contemplate that. I mean, in any of my books, you know, the Ray books or Infinitization or whatever, I said, I didn't mention that, you know, I could have given this perspective, or I left something out, or this is not really complete, but I'm sure that is the problem with any author, that they grow in their consciousness and later realize that they wrote whatever they wrote at a certain stage of consciousness, and they just had to pour it forth. I'm thinking about, you know, all that St. Paul did, for instance, when he was an initiate of the second degree and had not achieved the third. And some of his perspectives on things have gone on to even distort the direction of what Christ intended with Christianity. Now, you know, St. Paul was operating from his present level of consciousness. Maybe later he realized more, obviously. And he still had his limitations compared to the Christ. But any teacher or exemplar or representative of a great teaching has to work with his own limitations. And I certainly, well, I can't say I recognize them all. If I did, I'd do better. But, you know, I'm ready to recognize the limitations in my thought when they are presented to me or when they arise in my consciousness. Well, here is the great ray of intelligence, you know, and let's just say that this is a moment of great intelligence, the shining of the light. The transfiguration is a moment of great intelligence. The shining forth of the light. This whole idea of shine forth is in that great mantram. Let's see if we can find that. Probably it's shine forth. Oh, there's so many of them. Till we see his star shine forth. But I found it right away. May the holy ones whose disciple I am, whose pupils we seek to become, you know, there are a number of versions of this, give us the light we seek. Give us the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. This is now possible to a degree with the unfolding of the ninth petal. There is a power which maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self, capital S, as one. May that peace brood over us, that power uplift us, till we stand where the one initiator is invoked. That's what we're doing in the ninth petal, especially as it comes to the final unfoldment, till we see his star, the star of initiation, shine forth. So, you know, try to memorize that in the various forms in which it exists. Sometimes it's I, sometimes it's we, but it's always magnificent and should be part of our understanding. Intelligence, and it should be a great aspiration for us. This is in Dina 1 and Dyna 1, page 536, 537. Yeah, I should have known that. Okay, Dyna 1, 536 and 537. So, you know, we had spiritual intelligence and mental illumination, and now we have the light which reveals the whole, you know. More than mental illumination, we have the light which reveals the whole. Now, it's not the whole of the universe, but it's the relative macrocosmic whole of our planetary life. So think broadly and abstractly in a planetary sense of the grand planetary entirety. This is the spiritual triad in the abstract mind is operating here. So see the plan, the divine plan, in terms of its fundamental intelligence. Realize the passage. DK calls this the passage of the energies as seen from the mountaintop of transfiguration. And as you're moving towards this, more and more of the energies are made available to your understanding. Realize the passage of the energies from the mountain of initiation. Become a conscious wielder or manipulator of those energies for the sake of the service of all. And, you know, with the third ray, throat center, and so forth, communicate that which you see as you climb the mountain of initiation and take initiation on that pinnacle of consciousness we call, on that pinnacle of consciousness which we call the mountain of initiation. So it is a question of really letting people know and bear testimony to the one, to the monad. Now, you can't do that completely yet. I mean, the master can do that much better than the one approaching the third degree or even having taken the third degree. I will say that also with respect to the second ray, which is a great revealer in the light. And I want to say reveal the one, reveal the monad, and expound on the true philosophy and control the flow of creative energies so that they give testimony to the one which you are increasingly realizing or have at transfiguration realized. So become the true creative worker with hierarchy in full conscious intelligence. There's so much that the ray of creative intelligence can accomplish in this ninth petal. See the reason or reasons for the utter sacrifice of all forever, and let's just say with ray 1, demonstrate. Let's see if I can find ray 1. Yeah, demonstrate the sacrifice. Especially so for the first ray, and I must say it is so for the second ray. Demonstrate the sacrifice. All of them have to demonstrate the sacrifice, but maybe the third ray can somehow communicate the reason for the sacrifice. Communicate the reason, for the sacrificial life. Yeah. Well, becoming the great sacrifice, Sanat Kumara has all of these abilities, every one of them. And this is going to be okay, there. 1 3/4 to 2 1/4. I want to make this correct. 1 3/4. Is that correct? I think so. And 2 1/4. All right, well, that's my attempt to line things up, and I think maybe I didn't do such a good job. I will do a better job. Let's see if I can. Every once in a while, the seventh ray comes upon me, and I want to work this out correctly. Now, this is what I'm not fully understanding. All right. Well, this much must be hidden, but I'm not going to worry about that. Let's just say that it's lined up sufficiently. So, the great light shines, and the reasons for oneness can be communicated. One sees the need. It makes sense. It is rational. A pure reason, which has to do with the second ray, but works through the abstract intelligence of the third ray, reveals the necessity of the kind of sacrifice with which one must engage at this point. So it's not just the mind is linked to the intuition, and let's just say that. Make sure the abstract mind is linked to the intuition, to the pure reason of the Buddhic plane, and to the second aspect of divinity. And then so much can be accomplished creatively and intelligently. It's like, working in Master R's department with the flow of finance and the flow of the energy which makes possible creativity in the lower worlds, a kind of creativity which serves the purpose, which is understood in the world of being and is more related, I think, to the second ray, the ray of the divine pattern. Well, when it comes to the fourth ray, remember that is the ray that rules the law of sacrifice, so express fully the law of sacrifice ruled as it is by the fourth ray. Be victorious in the fearful conflict which occurs before the third initiation and has to do with accepting the higher identity as your own. It's a glorious thing, but one has to leave something behind, and one finds that the lower nature will put up a great fight. The so-called selfish faculties under Mars, it's a Vulcan and Mars kind of conflict. Let's just say harmonize the soul with the personality so that a high level of soul infusion can occur. And seek the input of energy from the Buddhic plane, intuition, to reveal the oneness which must grow as the as Petal 9 unfolds. So we have to invoke the intuition, realize the one humanity. The whole is seen as one, and humanity is the fourth kingdom and the fourth group, the fourth creative hierarchy. So there's a identification with humanity in its higher and potentially harmonious aspect. And shall we say, so subdue the personality that the ancient friction between soul and personality is overcome. And we then live according to the harmony aspect. Be inspired by beauty, and through the realized beauty, which, in the words of Master M, gives us the light, make the necessary sacrifice. When one understands how one is contributing to the beauty of all through sacrifice, one can be very thorough in that sacrifice. Christ was given an amazing vision in the Garden of Gethsemane by the Lord of the world, and saw the necessity of acquiescing to the kind of sacrifice which was demanded of him, something that we cannot understand, but he was probably given like a 5,000-year vision or a 4,500-year vision of what lay ahead, and how his continuing sacrifice, which was, not a crucifixion, but it was a much higher type of sacrifice, was needed. He saw what would happen if he didn't, and the beauty of the divine plan which would emerge if he did. So be inspired by beauty here. It is the ray of harmony, beauty, and art, and we should be living up to the higher aspects of it after we overcome that fearful conflict in which the dweller on the threshold still puts up a great resistance. I wonder, maybe only at the fourth initiation is this dweller really overcome, and it might be considered the dweller of humanity, or an aspect of the dweller of humanity is overcome. It's maybe more than strictly the personal dweller at the fourth degree, but here we have our own still individual dweller as a very high type of personality correlating with the number 4. We realize 4 elementals, and we have to put that in the proper proportion and overcome in the great light the power of that dweller. We are also overcoming, the Hydra heads. So at this point, be victorious over the mental Hydra heads, and those are pride, separativeness, and cruelty. And I could say that each ray would contribute to that, but we need the intuition to do this and to dispel illusion. Ray 4 and Ray 2 evoke the intuition. So I probably should include this as well. Now everybody has to do it, but the second ray and the fourth ray are very proficient at invoking the type of intuition which dispels illusion. Now, the fifth ray has been a great creator of illusion because of its tendency towards fragmentation. But, whoop, that's not what I want. I always don't want to sacrifice my brackets, but I always forget. So, use the great light of the most luminous of the ray lords to assist in seeing through illusion. And now that makes me want to go back to the third ray and say that we make sure that Buddhi increasingly combines with higher manas. So we have Buddhi manas. And with that combination, we are in a position to have the kind of perspective that promotes an understanding of why the utter sacrifice of all forever has to be made. I mean, it's only from these higher perspectives within the spiritual triad, or at least within those parts of the egoic lotus which reflect the spiritual triad, that we can actually see the necessity. Ray 5 is the ray of the third initiation, but it is a very high solar angelic light of which we are speaking. So use in a scientific manner the solar angelic light to assist in the dispelling of illusion which prevents the realization of essential oneness. And maybe I'll capitalize those. So cultivate the knowledge of essential oneness and how it actually demonstrates practically. Now this is possible. It's not just a vague mystical oneness. The oneness that is found in the relationship of all things, which in the great light of the fifth ray we can learn to see in an exact manner. And let's just say, I mastered energy, I am energy itself I am. Master the energies so they can be applied to best possible effect in sacrificial action. As I said before, the will to sacrifice is good, but knowledge of the technique of how to sacrifice is a must. Co-measurement of the energy to be given with the condition that exists is a must, and the fifth ray can do that. You know, think about Sanat Kumara. He wields with the flaming diamond, bringing the fifth ray in at this point of the first great and true initiation, the first one over which he officiates. So this fifth ray is a big part of the light supernal. So cultivate, well, is it cultivate or realize the growing light which will lead to the light, to the reception of an aspect of the light supernal, and work with the fact that in that light we shall see light, the greater light. So it's going to be intensely brilliant through the use of the fifth ray. The light supernal is deeply related to the fifth ray, to the second ray, to Venus, to the first ray, and the light of Shambhala, and the fifth and the first ray are closely related, L-I-G-H-T. Okay. So this intensity of light, in this intensity of light, see the necessity, the ways and means of the sacrifices called for. If we're going to become, in our sphere, the great sacrifice, we're going to be, in a small way, acting as Sanat Kumara, we're going to be wielding a great light. We're going to be shedding light on everything. The fifth ray Lord is the most luminous of the ray lords, and the second ray souls are the most luminous of souls. So combining those two rays at the second initiation, the solar angel is coming into its glory within its lower man. The solar angel is ruled by the fifth ray and the second ray predominantly, whatever other rays it may have in representing a type of soul ray, but the second and the fifth are the generic rays, and we have to use the second and fifth rays with all that we can influence. We are really light bearers at this point, and we will sacrifice much, sacrifice, no, not sacrocenter, sacrifice all that is possible to sacrifice in order to bear the light to those below and to the various aspects of our microcosmic energy system. Well, we could go on meditating here, and if you're endowed with the fifth ray and you find yourself approaching the third initiation, you're working at organizing and vitalizing and coordinating the ninth petal with strenuous and abnormal efforts, you'll find the way to master energy and to really make these subtle energies real and practical in expression, to lead yourself and others into the greater light more rapidly. Well, let's go on, aware as I am that, things are being left unsaid, important things, but, just having to sacrifice my obsession with completeness, like I say, ray 2, the ray of ridiculous entirety. So sometimes you have to realize that even a universe is not complete and is an ultimate infinitesimal, or an ultimate negligibility compared to the infinity of infinities. So even the entire vastness and completeness of the universe is the ultimate infinitesimal, absolute infinitesimal. Any measurable quantity is. But that would be to go off on third ray philosophy, which, though I am tempted and sometimes succumb, I will not succumb to at this moment. Maybe the sixth ray is not so used in this petal, but let's just say this: continue fiery aspiration to reach the higher realization. That's a must all the way through, and realize that your idealism will help you touch the idealism of the atmic plane, third subplane of the atmic plane. Am I correct? No, it's the Buddhic plane, third subplane of the Buddhic plane. So the idealism of the Buddhic plane and the inherent idealism of the monad, which correlates with the number 6. So there is, recognize the divine ideation and the divine idealism in that measure of the divine plan with which you may now become familiar in a first-hand manner. So much of the divine plan is mediated to us before we reach the 3rd degree, but then we can become the true knower. Remember that sequence of 5: know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. The true knowing actually, I mean, we could begin that at the 1st degree, and we could reveal at the 3rd. You know, we're supposed to reveal the 1, but from another and higher point of view, the sequence of those 5 initiatory stages begins with the true first initiation, and knowing the monad really begins at the 3rd initiation, which is the first real initiation. Then it goes on, express, reveal, destroy at the 6th initiation, interesting, and maybe destroy the monadic vehicle so the monad is free to go on its journeys, and resurrect at the 7th. So there are higher meanings here than those which we can normally fathom. So the 6th ray also, even though the 3rd initiation is approached more from the level, table, land with integration, direction, science, those are the words on page 340 of the rays and initiations. The one-pointed divine idealism driving towards the top of the mountain, where the mountain blue whereon you learn the invocation of a savior, can really be brought into effect here. Just study the law of repulse. It's so beautiful. Toward the end, the law of repulse for the 6th ray. In the far distance stands a mountain blue, and on that mountain, let's get it right. In the far distance stood a mountain blue, and from its summit issued forth a voice which said, "Come forward to the mountain top, and on its summit learn the invocation of a savior." To this great task the follower, now a leader, bent his energies. He's doing that through the 8th and the 9th petals. He still pursues the way. He's on his way to the peak where he can learn the invocation of a savior, and where the 6th ray will show its relationship to the 2nd ray. It's not that all 6th ray souls will become 2nd ray souls. You can take the 4th initiation as 6th ray soul, but certainly such a resonance will be set up there that one will really know the content of that higher ray of aspect, and not only the content of the ray of attribute related to it. The mountain blues, it shows we have an appointment with the 2nd aspect, and certainly in Transfiguration we do have an appointment with the 2nd aspect, which becomes glorious at that time. Now we go on and we find the 7th ray at last, and let the highest and the lowest meet. It's not spirit matter yet. This means soul and personality, with a semi-full infusion of the personality by the soul. And, you know, it's sort of a 3/4 infusion, and the ancient authority of the personality is ended at this point. So let's just say, and it's obvious, make your sacrifices real, or actual, on the physical plane and within the other vehicles of the personality. So this is manifest your realization in the most practical and group useful terms. Sanat Kumara has this orientation towards the dense physical plane inherited from the previous solar system, and although he works in the ethers, and maybe even in some way in the systemic ethers, where it is said that Shambhala also exists, somehow all of his work will impact the dense physical layers, and ours must as well. But then we have to realize, of course, that in terms of the planetary logos, the dense physical layers are precisely the lower 18 subplanes or lower 21 subplanes. That's the dense physical body of the planetary logos and solar logos, respectively. At least 21 subplanes for the dense physical body of the solar logos. Now, it remains to be seen whether the dense physical body of the planetary logos consists of 18 subplanes. There is perhaps reason to think that it does. So, think about the daily ritual of Sanat Kumara, the great sacrifice, how the waves of color and sound beat on the shores of the lower worlds, and DK says he's not talking in symbols. He's talking in actual fact. So let's put it like this: as the great sacrifice in your own sphere, develop your own ritual for the sharing of the energies which you wish to impart. We can't do it as Sanat Kumara does it, but it's certainly not a haphazard sharing. It's a rhythmic type of sharing of the energies which you possess and which are needed within your microcosm and within your own sphere of labor. And always keep the alignment. This is so important for the seventh ray. Keep the alignment from the highest to the lowest, so that the sacrifices may be effective. Because without the alignment, the higher energies just don't get through. Let's read this again. The petal of sacrifice for the mental plane demonstrates as the predominant bias of the soul as seen in a series of many lives spent by the initiate prior to final emancipation. We're becoming the soul in action. He becomes in his sphere the great sacrifice. We become the soul in action, so it appears, the soul in action. We become that. And demonstrate the bias of the solar angel. And we do that realizing the unity of the many and the one. And I want to say that under the third ray again, because this is the place to do it. Realize that the many and the one are one and the same. So it is under the third ray that we realize the oneness of the many. And since this petal is so concerned with seeing the whole as one, and the third ray is so connected with diversity and multiplicity, this is the place to master at least the initial phases of the realization of the oneness of the many and the many in the one and as the one. And we might say that the synthetic factors of certain rays are drawn forth here. Maybe even more so with the petals of synthesis, but ray 7 is one of those synthesis rays, and realize the nature of synthesis upon the dense physical plane. And within the dense physical body of the planetary logos, which involves some of the other subtle planes. It's so easy to see the many with the third ray and also with the seventh ray. But the seventh ray is a ray of relationship. So relate the many patterns into a pattern of oneness and serve sacrificially the welfare of that greater pattern, which you now see. It is a climactic moment in the history of the soul. The personality is overcome. It has its authority is ended, and we are living according to a new order of life. We are really citizens of the fifth kingdom of nature, and this, in fact, we have not necessarily mastered the fifth kingdom of nature, but we are full citizens in that kingdom. And it's an entirely higher order of life, and the rays can be used in a higher way. You know, we begin to focus here within the causal body. We begin to focus within the causal body, the egoic lotus, and our perspective on the plan, purpose, and on oneness is inevitably altered. We actually become a seer and a knower, and thus can wield the ray energies and zodiacal energies as we have not been able before. So it's something that many of us are looking forward to, and so much of DK's higher teaching aims towards this type of realization. But we have to make it real to ourselves. So when we're working in this petal, the oneness as perceived on the higher planes is becoming an actuality. After the third initiation, we work with the will. It's the will towards the oneness. We work with some understanding of Sanat Kumara. We work with identification. And I must say also, I seem to be going back and catching things. So if you have the patience to be with this, you'll get some of the things I caught. Work with a very effective presentation of presented attributes, because that is the higher initiatory formula that is correlated with the third ray, and also I would say with the seventh ray. The ray 5 begins to grasp isolated unity, and ray 4 and 6 begin to grasp inclusive reason. Remember, there are only 3 fusion formulas, and here we're reaching such a moment of soul infusion that the fusion formulas apply. We are reaching such a moment of soul infusion that the fusion formulas, according to 3 main rays, do apply. And they are isolated unity, presented inclusive reason, and presented attributes. So maybe even later, I mean certainly later, after we are finished with the causal body, they will be even more powerful, because DK talks about masters presenting attributes, and obviously masters also live in a high state of isolated unity, and they have that intuition of inclusive reason. We don't have that yet when we're still limited by our personal experience transpersonally alchemized into the causal body. We don't have it yet, but we are on our way to having it. Well, you know, I always think this is a climactic moment, and but in a way there's such a simplicity involved. You know, realize the one, know the one, know the one in many, know the divine plan, synthesize everything that's happened in the previous 8 petals, and let there be full unfoldment of the Brahmic aspect in petals of the egoic lotus, the Buddhic relating to the synthesizing petals and the atmic to the jewel in the lotus. Well, I think you get the idea, and if you are reaching towards this initiation, you can use your prominent ray energy, soul and personality, let us say, and even monadic energy as you begin to intuit it, because it's going to be coming in at the 3rd degree, or as you approach the 3rd degree. I mean, let's just say as you approach the 3rd degree, it will be making its presence felt. And when you look in your horoscope and you look at the point opposite the sun sign, if you're in Aries, it would be Libra. If you're a Taurus, it would be Scorpio, and so forth. You understand something of the way that sensed monadic energy can be applied in the particular life that you are leading now, the particular incarnation. So, you're becoming a wielder of energies here. You're becoming a director, you're becoming a teacher, you're becoming a manipulator, according to the ray of the monad, the higher ray of the monad. So even now, you can begin to find yourself moving into that stage of the director, the teacher, or the manipulator, or creator, I like to call it, creative wielder of energies. All right, we'll go on then, and we'll talk about the 12 signs of the zodiac in relation to these consummatory tasks of the 9th petal. We're becoming really the transfigured initiate. I mean, it's very high. Master Jesus, now Master Jesus, the initiate Jesus, was, as Joshua the high priest, already a 3rd degree initiate. He came into life as a 3rd degree initiate. He knew something, And then when the Christ began to overshadow him and pervade him, and maybe even, maybe take over his vehicles at the baptism, then even something more was said through him, a great deal more, actually. Well, our first sign is Aries. It's so connected with this 9th petal and with the 3rd initiation. So there is the understand pure being. Maybe I should even capitalize those. And first, the first aspect of divinity with which Aries is so connected. So enter into the will to be, at least in its preliminary stage, because the true will to be will be much greater as we move into the higher initiations. But we are told that we can enter into the mysteries of being in relation to Aries at the 3rd degree. So start a new course of progress dealing with the will and with being itself. The will being, in a way, the first expression of pure being. We're coming in touch with the monadic aspect here, so connected with Aries. Its nature is the will, but its deeper nature is pure being itself. So let's just say Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and thus connects with the One. So realize the One and the pure being, which is its substance, and I mean that in a deep philosophical sense. Also, enter. Let's see. It's the initiate entry into the realm to which transfiguration opens the door. So live in the expression or live under the impression of the monad. Well, this is a very high type of expectation for the sign Aries, but it is deeply connected here, and we do meet the father aspect in terms of the one initiator, and so we are coming in touch with the monad, the father aspect, Sanat Kumara, in this petal, which has so much relationship to the sign Aries. We are beginning an entirely new program which is going to take us into the spiritual triad increasingly. With Taurus, receive and express the great light of transfiguration, an aspect of the greatest light of the second ray. Nope. So we're told, with the second ray, the I see the greatest light is the theme, and Taurus is the second sign, and let's just say receive full measure of the light of wisdom, and register an aspect of the light of life itself. We're told that can occur, and if we look at page 332 of Esoteric Psychology, there it is, the light of life, the light of life, light of love, and the light of life. Interesting that the light of love would be associated with Taurus at a certain phase. DK has told us that this can sometimes be a somewhat loveless sign or have difficulty expressing love, but probably through the personality. Once the soul is reached, the love can be expressed. I'm just going to say, just a few little things here, not all. I couldn't say all even if I wanted to. With Gemini, realize the interplay, or let's see, realize the growing fusion of the two brothers, or the brother and sister, however it may be said, the two brothers in the light. Let the great second ray reveal the unity of all relationships. And, coming back to Aries, let the seed we'll capitalize it, seed of life bury itself in the fertile, quote, earth of the lower planes. Okay, and with Gemini, let the great second ray reveal the unity of all relationships. This is at last hear exactly what the soul, as the solar angel or angel of the presence, is saying or intending to communicate. And speaking of communication, communicate the realized one and the unity of all relationships. I think Master DK does a fantastic job at that. I think he's strongly Gemini. Of course, he does it at a higher level than will be possible for those who are taking the third degree. As we take the third degree, all kinds of, as you approach the third degree, link up all kinds of relationships into a realized unity. Realized fully at the transfiguration. in a way, it's easier somehow to summarize the astrology of this ninth petal because it's so ultimate, the light of life itself, with respect to Taurus, it is the great light of transfiguration, even more so in Capricorn, which is an even fuller measure of that light. Realize that indeed the whole is one. This we can say under Cancer. And embrace that whole in its oneness. Be intimate to all aspects of the realized whole. Now again, that's just the beginning, but at least the sense it is to be seen as the spiritually familiar, even though you may never have encountered some of the farther reaches of our planet or solar system. One embraces the oneness of this. With Leo, radiate the glory of transfiguration from a position in which identity is immersed in the higher self. Well, all of this, of course, these realizations have to lead to that full sacrifice. Let's just say, in Cancer, have the compassion for the whole, which promotes the utter sacrifice of all forever. It is intimate, it is family, it is very, very close. Let's see, for Gemini, establish all links through which the great sacrifice must pour. And with Leo, let's say, stand in your own sphere as the, we'll call it, king of sacrifice. We're supposed to be the great sacrifice in our own sphere. Sanat Kumara is a blazing, radiant king. He's the king of Shambhala, and we have to become, become the sacrificial king of our own sphere of sacrifice. Now, what that means to every individual has to be worked out. With Virgo, in utter humility, realize the oneness of the Father, Mother, and Son. I am the mother and the child. I, God, who is the Father, I, God, I matter, am. I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter, am. So, realize that all forms are merged in the one form. And if we're working towards this and have not yet taken the third initiation, well, then the realization is simply growing. When it comes to Libra, let us say, consummate the divine marriage, the real infusion of the personality by the soul, and begin to tread the way to Shambhala under the influence of the Father aspect, which is now received. Slightly anyway. And it's the royal road, the path of the just, leads unto the perfect day of Shambhala. Libra rules the road to Shambhala. The way to Shambhala is the way of utter sacrifice, even as the great sacrifice now stands, that is Sanat Kumara. So it's amazing, how much the Aries and Libra connection can be connected with the Great Bear and with Shambhala, with the first aspect. The royal road is the Sushumna, the central channel. In this case, the central channel is not the channel of the soul, but the central channel becomes the channel of the spirit. The central Libran channel becomes the channel of the spirit. Okay. And the spirit, the nature of the spirit is to give itself entirely and fully, appropriately, and that is sacrifice. Scorpio, let us say, finally kill off the mental heads of the Hydra, conquer the threefold personality so that it loses its ancient authority. Be ready to put to death anything that stands in the way of utter giving, as we are told. Detach from the lower temptations, all of them, all 9 heads of the Hydra. Summon the intuition which dispels illusion and which comes from the Buddhic plane which Scorpio rules, interestingly enough. So this is these are the final tests of Scorpio's peculiar, as DK calls it, testing potency. Yeah, it seems like these signs of the zodiac have sort of struggled free of their type of expression in other petals and can now release their full potency. With Sagittarius, see the nature of illusion, and from a high and intuitive perspective, dispel it. Just as the marsh birds have been dispelled, continue with the further dispelling of all that prevents the whole from being seen, that's a particular Sagittarius word, as one. Then tread the path into oneness. Where does this path lead? It leads to the top of the mountain. It leads to the great panoramic vision. So tread it undeflectably, with no possibility of relent. And then, we're treading the burning ground here. We're treading the way of sacrifice. So this is really the sacrifice petal. We are treading this burning ground into the total sacrifice, which will end in the sacrifice of the egoic lotus. When it comes to Capricorn, be the initiate, seeing all from the mountain of initiation and descend into the valleys, carrying that much of the supernal light as you can. Learn the mystery of the soul, of the Makara, and be the soul in incarnation. Focus upon the peak of your consciousness, which will allow consciousness within the causal body, Egoic Lotus. Well, Sanat Kumara is the one initiator and the great sacrifice, and do something similar in reflection in your own sphere of service. Open doors for others and sacrifice so that they can enter those doors. Achieve panoramic vision of the transfiguration as you dwell within the light supernal, and be the unicorn of God, bringing that light to those in the valleys. The fighting and triumphant beast, we are told. That is the unicorn. You are now the unicorn of God, and increasingly will be so as you rise in the initiatory ladder, rise upon the initiatory ladder. Capricorn is going to rule all 5 of the initiations. So the Capricorn energy does not stop, but this is, you are really becoming the initiate here, and represent the monad and the one, and do so in full practicality and with strength, which does not give way. Exert the will which conquers death. That's the peculiar type of will associated with Capricorn, and the conquest of death has been begun now, and at the 4th degree it is demonstrated. It's an apparent death, which is the conquering of death at the 4th degree. Well, Aquarius is another sign associated with the transfiguration, so spread the light of transfiguration far and wide and to all. Send the healing, cleansing rays into the darkened substance of humanity. Work with your group to share all that may be rightly shared. Merge with the serving and saving spiritual hierarchy of our planet, because remember that Aquarius is particularly the sign of the spiritual hierarchy. Excuse me. Realize universal love as much as one can at that stage, and represent it. And here is another sign of the one and the many. Be both the many and the one through your what kind of expression is this? Through your expression, which is of all or for all seasons. There is a universality in the 3rd degree initiate. Sir Thomas More demonstrated this, and the play about him, the man for all seasons, told something about what he had achieved, pour forth the content of the chalice, which is the highest head center, in service for all. So one is radiating from this head center here, and that radiation is a great act of service. And let's just say, be so identified with the group and even the whole that sacrifice is seen as the natural response. Well, Pisces is preeminently the sign of sacrifice, and I just say, give all. Let's say this is the give all utterly through great compassion and understanding and pervasive wisdom. Know how and where the gift is to be given. Dissolve all barriers to oneness. There are many, and they are in consciousness, and use this synthetic energy to overcome the last vestiges of illusion, as the human being can know illusion. Later there are other aspects of illusion, and they are dispelled by the ones who are more than the human being. The ninth initiation, whoever takes the ninth initiation is more than the human being by far, is already a planetary spirit. So there is give all from the heart. There is and allow all attachment to lesser things to melt away, be dissolved. I leave the Father's home, and turning back I save. So sacrifice all so that you may be saved. And as I write this, I'm realizing how easy it is to write words and how difficult it would be to be like Father Damien taking the fourth initiation on Molokai Island with all of the lepers whom everyone had abandoned, and basically giving his life so that they could have some kind of life at all. I'm remembering, he even had, in the church that he built, he had to create special holes in the floor so the people who had lost limbs to leprosy and they had just these stumps could actually be able to attend the services. And he eventually, of course, as might happen, he contracted the disease himself, and if you see some of the pictures of him in the later days, well, you just know he had given all for the Christ. It's just amazing. Probably a sixth-ray soul with a first-ray personality, and he was a Capricorn, showing, the initiatory potential, with Taurus rising, connected with the fourth ray and the fourth degree. He just gave everything he had. If you look at the pictures of him, oh my God, just that intense look in his eye, Speaking of, people that give all. And I just, if I can find that, I've used that before, and you may have seen it, but it's just incredible, So, Father Damien, go. Maybe we can find his picture somewhere. Father, back up, Father Joseph Damien interpretation. I did astrological interpretation of him, and well, maybe that's not the place to go. Maybe it's under pictures, you know, my pictures. So let's see what I've got. If I try it again. Oh no. Let's see. Okay, well here's what I have to show you. Just take a look as a young man here. I don't know, I don't know how well you can see this, but yeah, pretty well. My God. You can see the Taurus and the shape of the nose, and I'm not sure about the Capricorn, but oftentimes the eyebrows are low over the eyes. The intensity of the eyes for a sixth-ray soul, my God, they are burning. So let's just continue here, and this is the same basic picture. You know, we want to see what somebody who's intent on giving his entire life looks like. We can see it there. And here I suppose is this him or is this a statue? I can't yet. It seems to be his statue, but of course the final picture, you know, if you really look here and see what became of him and how he suffered from contracted leprosy. His whole body is falling apart. He's covered with these sores. You know, it's a huge sacrifice. He didn't have to. He could have had a much cushier job, you know, but he elected to go there. And this is him as he is contracting the leprosy, and you know, it's a very disfiguring disease. He finally died of it, but he had made their life so much better. And the whole story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson was based upon the Father Damien story. I may have mentioned this in other discussions, but Mr. Hyde was the name of a, well, you know, he was the alter ego or the lower ego of Dr. Jekyll, the good Dr. Jekyll, and then the rampant, horrific Mr. Hyde, who went out at night and committed all these crimes. It was a very Gemini situation. But interesting thing was that Mr. Hyde was a high prelate in the church who basically criticized mercilessly Father Damien for going to Molokai Island and tried to minimize all that he had done. He was probably horrified at the type of sacrifice which he was unable to do. And Robert Louis Stevenson so took the part of Father Damien that he impersonated him as the good Dr. Jekyll, and the other man, Mr. Hyde, represented evil because of his refusal to understand the great good that Father Damien was attempting to do, and his attempt to always stand in the way of that progress, always criticize him, always minimize his work. So you know, his example is incredibly moving, and if DK talks about what the fourth initiation. Whoop. All right, I see that I have failed to actually record on my. I was talking about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Father Damien. I always have another program running in case my recording fails. So he had a tremendous influence. You know, DK said that the death of a Hitler, dealing with the destructive aspect of the third ray, is entirely different from the death of a Master Jesus or a Father Damien. He included them in the same breath, so you know he's talking about the fourth degree. And he said, you know, with this fourth degree, it is a life of such difficulty that the individual may lose everything that pertains to the outer world and life itself. And this was true of Father Damien. So, and I'm trying to, I know this is a little bit of a digression, but he inspires me so much when I think of him that I just want to take a quick look at his chart, open, and let's just say Father Damien. Let's just see if I can locate him in this way. And if not, I'll do it in another way. Somewhere he is. Well, I'm not doing too well, am I? But let's just see if Father, F-A-T, maybe Joseph Damien. Maybe I'll just do D-A-M-I-I-A-N. And Joseph Campbell. Not doing too well there. So let's see if D-A-M-I-E-N will help me find him, because I've done his chart. There it is. Father Joseph Damien. Okay, there it is. All right. Famous and Cleaner for the book. Okay, and let's take a look at this. Speaking of signs and, well, there is, of course, this elevated Sun in Capricorn and, Pluto, the planet of death and sacrifice, found in the 12th house, and Uranus in the 12th house too, and it's and in the sign Pisces. So it was a noteworthy, remarkable sacrifice. And there's Jupiter in Scorpio at the 7th house. He gave all, leading to death. He gave all for the other. Profound altruism. And of course his environment, the 3rd house, that was where he was wounded and contracted the disease. But there's a huge initiatory elevation here. He went far afield, the moon in Sagittarius, great aspiration. And his a fire worshiper, that's the symbol of his sun. So the divine fire. And here in the Virgo part, the healing part of Taurus, in a practical way, bringing light to and love to those who had so little, those who hardly had life itself. Well, I've taken a bit of a digression, but I wanted to just point out what this utter sacrifice of all forever can be. We're used to the story of the initiate Jesus and what it meant for him to sacrifice all forever. But when it comes to Father Damien, closer to our time, and a story of redemption and full giving for others, even under the point of death, and really, leprosy, unclean, the most disagreeable type of disease. We see a modern example of the utter sacrifice of all together. Obviously, he either took the 3rd initiation in that life or was born that way and then went on to take the 4th initiation. Otherwise, he would not have been mentioned in the same breath as the initiate Jesus, the Master Jesus. Just showing you that reference, death, Father Damien. Let's see, death, Damien. There it is. Oh, it's I-E-N. Well, all right. Here it is. The death of a Master Jesus or of a Father Damien and the death of a Hitler or of a murderer are not the result of the same essential energies. The form is destroyed, but the motivating impulse is entirely different. So, raised in the initiations, page 87 and 88. Yeah, mentioning Father Damien in the same breath as a Master Master Jesus, who took, as we know, the 4th degree. Let's go on. So, at this point, let me just say a few things. Be the transfigured Son of the Son of God. Be that. And in the 9th petal, work towards it in the strenuous and abnormal efforts of the 9th petal, and be it when initiation is achieved. I'm just going to say brief things here because by now you know about this. And it may be the objective of some who read this, but they're, if they're at that point, then enough may be said. Let the moon be transfigured through the full expression of Vulcan, Neptune, and Uranus. Now, the hierarchical moon is found in Aquarius. And when that moon is in Aquarius, it represents transfiguration. Not everybody who has the moon in Aquarius, of course. But it can represent that with the full expression of Vulcan physically, Neptune emotionally, Uranus the occult mind mentally. And that is the way to deal with the moon, to bring these three forward, so that it becomes a very fit vehicle through which the sacrifice may be expressed. Now, this sun is going to be sacrificed at the 4th degree. The sun of transfiguration will be sacrificed at the 4th degree. But right now we're talking about the approach to the 3rd. Be struck by spiritual will, even as St. Paul was struck, and from that time on express the powerful, illumined will of the soul. Will of the soul. All right, will of the soul. I guess I don't have that. I have the world of the soul, but not the will of the soul. St. Paul was literally, knocked off his horse by the blinding light. So let's just say, accept the blinding light of the spiritual will, and then express in full strength the will to sacrifice and forever afterwards. Just as St. Paul did, and it drove him to Rome, where he was beheaded, and one can imagine that for him was the taking of the 4th degree, driving from the 2nd to the 4th degree. In this final decade of Capricorn, Vulcan, Mercury, and the Sun are all found. So unite Mercury, Vulcan, and the Sun in the supernal light of transfiguration. Accept the Buddhi, which dispels illusion and reveals all interconnections in the One. It's not just the One, it's the interconnections in the One. Maybe Jupiter will reveal the One itself. But let's just say, have access to what DK calls it, the transcendental mind, which reveals the One. And I will say that in the light of the One, the sacrifice of all forever is seen as necessary and desirable. The normal personality just doesn't see it that way because it's still identified with this lower elemental self. But one starts to identify as the whole. And let's just say here, link up with the group and let group intuition prevail, encouraging the utter sacrifice of every member of the group. When it comes to Venus, learn the meaning of the angel of the presence and enter into the light of that angel at Transfiguration and at Transfiguration. Okay, and in that angelic presence, enter the light of the presence itself, because the angel introduces the man to the presence which it has been veiling, and that presence is the monad. So come into the closest rapport with the solar angel, who has sacrificed for so long and can teach you, us, about the true meaning of sacrifice and why it is so desirable and necessary. So the presence of the solar angel becomes more and more powerful as we move into the third degree. I would say that the light of the solar angel must be part of the transfiguring light. And, it will, of course, intensify towards the fourth, and at the fourth, then we become, in a way, sort of a lesser solar angel, and the solar angel wings its way back to that aspect of the sun which it is destined to join. Well, with the earth, we are the earth. Make the earth sacred. Illumine the earth, which means our microcosm and all those of lesser degree that whose lives we touch. Yeah. It is the hierarchical ruler of Gemini and has everything to do with making the sacred man and making the sacred planet. With Mars, that fearful conflict. So win over Mars in the fearful conflict, which would have us, what would it have us do? Have us retain our selfishness. But using Vulcan as the spiritual will, overcome the selfish faculties, and with zeal pursue the utter giving of all. Mars can still be very useful because it takes courage to sacrifice all forever. So use Mars to strengthen this courage. With Jupiter, it takes all of the connections that Mercury has revealed and realize the one, embrace the one as a whole. Fulfill the work of Mercury, which has linked all things together, and the height of Jupiterian generosity is to utterly sacrifice all forever. Oh, I realize that words are words, but 10 million words and can weigh against one sacrificial act and be of less weight, far less weight. than the sacrificial act itself, and all of us will encounter that necessity. And in Hinduism, they make a distinction between the talkers and the doers. I realize that in presenting this kind of work, it's the work of a talker. And one, to pass that fourth degree, must become a true doer in the profound spiritual sense, using the full spiritual will. With Saturn here, simply make whatever sacrifice is necessary to be able to give all. So we sacrifice lesser things so that we may utterly give all things. So it's a strongly discipline the nature, the lower nature, and even the causal nature, so that nothing may be held back from the demanded necessary sacrifice. I mean, Saturn is so sacrificial. This is Sanat Kumara standing at his post. We are becoming the great sacrifice. Sanat Kumara is the great sacrifice, is the great sacrifice under Saturn, never leaving his sacrificial, spell it right, sacrificial post, and we, in our own lesser sphere, must hold ourselves, to the same type of attitude, the same type attitude of expression. Okay. So you just can't escape Saturn, and you climb, fulfill all karma, so that nothing is in the way of the giving. That's what it means to place your foot upon the mountain of karma, so that you may give of the light supernal. So let's just say, of Uranus, make all things better according to your intuition of the archetype. There is a pattern in the heavens, and this pattern must be manifested. So despite the friction which comes when archetype meets condition, see the archetype through into manifestation. And there will be sacrifice involved in doing this, because if heaven is to come to earth, if heaven is to come to earth, then the pain of the difference, DFC, between them must be born. So, Sanat Kumara is Uranus as well. He's the initiator. He's wielding the electric fire, the flaming diamond, the rod of initiation. And we, in our own way, have to learn how to use electric fire for the sake, use electric fire for the sake of improving conditions. That may not be easy at first, because it's a very destructive fire and we can't bear it anyway, but increasingly the lightning of electric fire, Uranus being the home of electric fire, will reach us, and we can, mediated by the soul, use it. Neptune, sacrifice all in utter self-forgetfulness. And this is the great planet of identification. So I identified as spirit, as monad, give the full content to the lesser lives, to our fellow lives, to all who may be reached, and basically emulate the Christ spirit and emulate the spirit of Sanat Kumara, who is the world's savior in a sense even higher than the Christ is the world savior. So you're becoming the savior here, and give all in utter self-abnegation, and you can negate the lower self, because you are now identified as something much higher, more pervasive, more subtle. You have blended with the spirit itself. And from this position of identification, the full sacrifice can be given. There's some connection here between some of the approaches from the signs and some of the approaches from the planets that are connected with those signs, but you will recognize these. These are all the higher aspects. Remember, Neptune rules Cancer, in which the whole is seen as one. There's something about that dissolving energy, dissolving difference, dissolving illusion. I want to say that use Neptune to dispel the sense of difference upon which illusion is based. So Neptune helps make it possible that the whole may be seen as one in Cancer, and certainly in Pisces, the world saviorship is facilitated by Neptune. Neptune, Pisces, the world savior, they all go together. Finally, we reach the point of Pluto, and put the personality to death. At least let there be no limiting personality consciousness. The consciousness must now be higher, of the soul and even of the spirit. It's the cut. Cut yourself from all lower identifications and let them disappear into the lower levels of possibility. Now you are moving behind this Aries, Pluto, Shambhala. You are moving into this realization of the great first ray, which says we are a unity in power. Let Pluto pave the way into isolated unity. Of course, you can use Uranus and use Neptune, two great synthesizing planets, to achieve the isolated unity. Use Neptune and Uranus to facilitate the realization of isolated unity. But there are things which just have to die if we are going to sacrifice unto death. So let those things die which must, so that we can sacrifice unto death, and thus find life. Well, okay, again, a few things said. Can we wield these energies as we must? That is the question. And of course we must simply try. We must simply try. Somewhere here is a picture of the Egoic Lotus, and there it is. Friends, we are finishing now 71 programs. In a way, I would have liked to make it 72, but I don't see any reason immediately to have another program which is just sort of a roundup. I think I've been summarizing and synthesizing as I go along. This has been a very exhaustive and for some exhausting correlational study on the Egoic Lotus and the different factors involved in man's evolution which can be correlated with the different phases of unfoldment of the Egoic Lotus. We are, all of us, growing and growing rapidly now, and this sacred golden flower, this heavenly temple, is unfolding rapidly for those who have taken the first degree and are moving towards the second, and that includes so many of the students today. And we can take our own evolution in hand, knowing what each historical period requires. Each historical period of our evolution requires knowing it in detail, and knowing the particular energies which facilitate it, which will facilitate it, and knowing how any of the energies that we have can be applied to the task. We are working out our own salvation here, and we are attempting to become fully unfolded beings so that we can become true members of the spiritual hierarchy and serve and save in far greater measure than is possible to us at the present moment. When we are the radiant golden flower, such as is attempted to be depicted here, our capacity for service is immeasurably enhanced over what it probably is right now. The time will come when we have earned the right to proceed through the accolade of fire, which destroys the causal body and liberates us into far greater capacity for service. But we can't give away what we don't have. We cannot commit to the flames what has not been constructed. So we are still in the building process, most of us, probably all of us, and we are building the beauty of the Temple of Solomon, building this egoic lotus. And it makes sense to be a conscious and wise builder, wielding the energies at our disposal in a way which will truly and expeditiously build according to the design intended. So we have to use our full mind. We have to be, deeply in love with the soul and with the soul of each. And we have to have this amazing willpower which comes from the very center, from the jewel in the lotus. Any study of the jewel in the lotus is really a study of the monad, because the jewel in the lotus is the monad in extension. So little is said about it right now in terms of the technical details, but maybe in the next work that Master DK does, he will tell us more about this first aspect of divinity. And chances are that we will have passed through some harrowing experiences before 2025 comes up. Just as we had to pass through the First World War before DK was able really to present his second installment beginning in 1919. So it's in our hands. We can study the energies, know what they are good for, know what must be done, and then devise for ourselves a program in which, knowing what our next step ahead is, knowing what petal it refers to, knowing what task must be done, we use the energies wisely, intelligently, lovingly, and with full willpower to achieve precisely what must be done. Now, maybe it's very rare for people to devise for themselves such a program. But I think it's necessary, and DK says that every true disciple has his own program of progress, and we have quite a few tools here now to help us devise this program. Somewhere, between the 5th and the 9th petal, this is the likely place of work for those who will be studying the Egoic Lotus through Master DK and studying the Egoic Lotus through this type of presentation. The synthesis petals will take care of themselves to a degree, and after we pass the third initiation, we can focus in this realm of synthesis, but let's not put the cart before the horse. So many details have been given here. You can probably make more organized notes and come up with a more organized presentation. I've tried to organize reasonably and keep certain subjects before our eye, and then the method of application, which is hinted here by me in various ways, must be conceived by you and then enacted by you. It's in your hands at this point. And, you know, for a long time I've been meaning to do this Egoic Lotus book. I just reached that point in my life when I said, look, I just can't sit down and write and write and write and write. This will take forever. So I have to trust myself to be able to talk it, realizing that it has sometimes a deleterious effect upon organization. Oh, my. Well, at the same time, I think enough information has been given so that if you are sincere in this process, you can truly achieve. And that's what I would like to see: your achievement, my achievement, the achievement of the esoteric group in the world, the achievement of all disciples. Master Morya said, bring me an achievement, so let's bring him an achievement and make ourselves useful. At least let me be useful. Foster Bailey was said to have said, Mary Bailey told me that, at least let me be useful, and let us find the ways to that usefulness by understanding our energies and how we can use them to create this great unfolding of the beautiful Egoic Lotus, the Temple of Solomon. By the way, Master Morya was said to have been King Solomon also. Okay, friends, thank you. Thank you for persisting, for going this far with me if you reached this point, and I hope that you've gotten something out of it and are in a position to think about this heavenly temple, which we are all building, and to think in terms that will really help you build it more rapidly, more beautifully, more soundly. Let us apply ourselves then to the work of intelligently, lovingly, and with full willpower building the Egoic Lotus. On to some other book now. Not sure which, whether physiognomy or whether it will be the last part of the rays and initiations. Whatever it is, I'll keep you informed. Let's together build the beautiful Temple of Solomon. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Lots of love. See you later. Bye-bye.